Welcome everyone. So on this day we're spending 3 days in the garden, and we're preparing for spring 2026. Doing things from planting seeds into the ground, potatoes, cleaning up the beds are already weeded, but just sorting out the beds, and just basically cleaning up and planting some seeds out, and it's my first time fertilizing the beds too. So come along on this journey with me. And my back was very sore on this day because I, on a previous day, had tripped and fell. So if you hear me complaining, that's probably why. So first thing we're doing is ripping the kale out of this bed because it's been in there over winter, it's gone to seed, it's not good anymore. So we just put that on the compost. So the next step is to get this bed filled up with some compost. I already put some in, and then I realised I didn't have enough, so I had to go to the garden centre and pick some up.
Oh god, my back. Ouch. It's a bit better.
I will say that my boyfriend did throw these bags, throw the bags there for me. I didn't carry them over myself, I was just pouring them into the bed myself.
Yeah, that's easier.
So this is just a basic potting mix that I get from a garden centre near me. It's the one that the people recommended to me years ago when I first started out, and I find that it isn't too grainy or sandy, and it's not too chunky, so it's a pretty good mix. So I'm just spreading out the compost over the bed, as you can see. And I have 2 bags here, and I think I only have 1 on there, so I think overall I'm adding 3 bags to this bed. So the other plants left in the bed are lettuce. I think they're both types of lettuce. One of them looks more than dead, but I figured I'd leave it and see if it comes back to life. And the other one I think is a betta lettuce, whatever it's called. And I planted those last year and they just had only just grown now, so I figured I'd leave them. So once we get this bed the compost added to this bed, we can fertilise it. And to fertilise it, I bought these chicken manure pellets. You can kind of see them in the frame. I've not fertilised my beds before. I don't know why. It just never entered my head as something to do. But I think it's probably a good idea and something that you should do. Usually I just add quite a bit of compost each time, but this time I already had quite a bit of compost, so I thought, no, I'm going to add fertiliser.
So 2 metres spread. So 1 to 3 handfuls of full-size seeds.
So the instructions are given based on the amount of space there is. And my spatial awareness is not the best, so I just wing it. So if you're new here, I have 3 beds. I have the one that we're sat next to, the one just behind it that you can see, and then one in front of it. And then also a greenhouse, a big plant pot, and then a bunch of other kind of just small plant pots that you normally have around. So my aim this year is to try and fill up them as much as I can, and to hopefully keep them well nourished. And so this fertiliser I'm hoping will help. I've quite clay soil underneath the soil and compost that I've added. And I've heard that chicken manure and other organic matter is good for that, for breaking kind of it down so that the plant roots can grow through it. I'm not an expert, but I'm hoping that's the case. But if you have any suggestions, they'd be appreciated. I've heard people say that they add sand to the clay soil, but I've also heard that that can have the opposite effect and make it like a concrete, so I didn't want to go ahead and do that. So for now I'm just adding some fertiliser and seeing how that turns out. So I'm just mixing that through with my teeny tiny spade. I need to get a bigger spade. But that's the one that I have, so that's the one I'm using. I keep saying it, but what I really need to do is make a video on budget gardening, because that's where I'm an expert. I just never seem to buy new stuff for the garden, and just seem to always make do, and I'm not sure why. It's not really intentional, it's just what seems to happen. But once the beds are finally set, we can get to planting. So this is seed tape. I've never used it before, I've only used normal seeds before. It's kind of interesting. It's almost like toilet paper. But yeah, these are spring onions. And I filmed this in March. So I'm presuming that we're meant to go out in March. They're probably fun to go out still in April. And I'm in England, so depending on where you are, obviously depends when you can plant things. wasn't sure how well this would turn out, the seed tape, but I'm glad to say that they are coming up now, the spring onions, so it seemingly works fine.
So they were just here.
I'm sorry if you can't hear me that well, it was pretty windy on this day. But what I'm doing is just placing a stick next to where I planted them, so I remember that there's something there. I do kind of have a plan this year for how and where I want things planted, but I'm also kind of just winging it. So usually I don't do much of things that are planted straight outside, but this year I've decided to focus more on things that go straight into the ground, because managing everything in the greenhouse and repotting things, it just becomes kind of a chore and stressful, and so I thought
1.5 centimeters.
I would probably prefer it if more things just went straight into the ground. So tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff I'm still growing indoors like you would normally do, but I'm doing more outdoorsy crops which I wouldn't normally do. So spring onions, it's the first year I've ever tried growing spring onions, and then here I'm growing some carrots next to them, because apparently I think they're companion plants. I've been googling a lot as I'm planting stuff what are companion plants for different things, so I think spring onions prevent the flies that are attracted to carrots, for example. I am way overseeding these and everything else I'm planting pretty much, but I can get rid of plants that grow if I don't want them, but I can't, make more afterwards, so I am overseeding these carrots.
Let's check this one.
So this here is my gardening plan. It's loosely based on what I'll actually do, but it gives me an idea.
And so there's some flowers at the back.
So if you heard me say it, I want sunflowers at the back. I really want to have a few sunflowers in each bed to attract pollinators this year. I have planted some. These seeds can go straight into the garden according to the packet. I haven't noticed any sunflowers coming up though, if I'm honest, so I don't know whether maybe the seeds were eaten by animals or whether they just weren't successful. But I haven't noticed any signs of sunflowers, so I might need to reseed those. So that is something for me to bear in mind. But yeah, I want sunflowers in pretty much every bed I have, because I just want A, sunflowers, I think they're pretty, but B, I just think it would be nice to attract pollinators, especially for growing things like cucumbers and stuff where you need them, and pumpkins, so it could be useful. I'm actually deadly afraid of bees and wasps, so it doesn't really benefit me to plant these in a way, because I will freak out every time I see them, but I know logically that it's the right decision and that they're not going to attack me, but I am afraid. I always will be. So on the packet I have, it says plant 2 per hole, so that's all I'm doing. I'm just planting 2 sunflower seeds per hole, and I think I'm doing 3 holes at the back of this bed. And then it looks like in front of them I'm planting lettuce. And I have a bag of, my packet of lettuce is mixed lettuce, and I've just been planting that so I can kind of see what comes up and what does well. I planted quite a lot of lettuce this year. I don't usually, but I want more ground cover, and I figured lettuce would be a good option for that. I also eat lettuce, so I don't know, it's just an experiment, see how it goes. I've been gardening, this will be my 4th year gardening now, I think, and I used to garden as a kid too, but I'm definitely still in a learning position, and I still definitely don't know exactly what I'm doing. I'm just kind of doing things and placing sticks in places where I planted stuff. I did decide to come back and plant another row of spring onions in front of those carrots. I eat quite a lot of spring onions, so I figure it'll be a good crop to grow. And also, I think it said on the packet that they were super easy to grow. Again, I've never grown them before, but I figured, why not? And like I say, they're already coming up, so I think they are a pretty easy crop to grow. So if you're looking for something easy to start, maybe try spring onions. I think everyone's seen the trick where you can put the spring onion, the end of the spring onion that you've already used, in water and it will regrow. I'm presuming that's the same if it's in the ground. Maybe you can cut the top off and it will regrow. I don't know. Oh, and I know not everyone calls them spring onions. Some people call them scallions. But where I am in England, I'm in the East Midlands. Everyone always calls them spring onions. And I'm getting the hang of this seed tape now. It helps if you wet it, because then it would just stick to the ground rather than blowing in the wind. So after some Google searching, I do go back over there and decide to plant a few more things. I know one of the things I decided to plant there is coriander, because I saw that coriander was a companion plant for
Leaves?
I can't remember what it was, but I don't remember, but coriander and cilantro was a companion plant for something, maybe lettuce, I don't know. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to plant a row of coriander too. And I think I'm also planting a row of leeks. Maybe it's a companion plant for the leek, I don't know. I do have a book that I found in a charity shop about organic gardening, and that has a lot about companion plants too. And I know like the Three Sisters method, I never grow corn. I don't think that would work if I tried. But I am thinking about growing beans next to my pumpkins this year, maybe with like a stick there, for the nitrogen fixing properties. Usually I just have one pumpkin plant per big pot, but maybe if I add beans that would help the pumpkins grow. I don't know. I do usually fertilise my plants once they're growing. I usually use an organic liquid fertilizer and I water that in on them, but I don't usually fertilise the actual ground that the plants are going into, other than adding compost to it. So maybe I will add some chicken manure to my pumpkin pots as well this year when I go to, just before I plant them out, and maybe that will help them grow too. I don't know. I'm very experimental. I could Google it and find out the answer, but I probably won't, and I will probably just see what happens. So now we're on to the next bed, and I'm adding fertilizer to this one too. You can see how much I'm just winging this, but that's okay. Usually, how I hurt my back is I hurt like my tailbone, so it's actually kind of funny because I can sit down usually just fine, but if I bend over or lift heavy things, it really hurts. It still hurts. I think I could have broken it at the time and then should have probably gone to hospital, but I didn't. I was insistent that I was probably fine, and I think I probably wasn't fine because I still keep having really bad pains, and we're like a month on at this point. But I figured I wouldn't be able to move around if I'd broken my tailbone, so it couldn't be broken. But now I'm not so sure. But it's kind of funny looking back because it doesn't hurt as much now, and it's funny seeing how ridiculous I looked because I could barely do anything. And I did go straight to gardening, like after it happened. I went straight back to gardening like the next day or the day after, and that probably was not the best idea either. Then I'm just adding this fertilizer to the other bed as well. The other bed, this one that I'm working on now with the mesh around it, is by far the biggest. It's probably both the others combined is the biggest, and that's the one that I usually grow my tomatoes in. But this year I'm not just growing tomatoes, and I hopefully I'll be growing some beans and peas, and I think last year I did put a bit of basil in there. Put some basil in there too because apparently basil makes the tomatoes taste better. I'm not 100% sure on that, that's what I've heard. And apparently beans and peas are good because again they like add nutrients to the soil. So the prior years I basically just grew tomatoes in this bed, but this year I'm going to be mixing it up a bit more. It will still be mostly tomatoes though, but on this mesh around the outside I want to have beans and peas, at least I think probably just on this one side, maybe down the other bit too, at the back, I don't know, I hadn't thought about it. I'd already planted beans and they all got eaten by birds, which is my bad because I probably should have planted them deeper in the ground. But I did plant some peas as well, and the peas are coming up on this one side, the side closest to the camera. I'm also adding some compost to this plant pot. And this is towards the end of this first day that I spent out there. Now I can see that the light has gone down. And I can also see that I'm clearly worn out, and trying to bend over and put the seeds in this plant pot was probably a mistake, and I probably should have left it for another day, but I didn't. So this is like a tower planter from Amazon, and sorry, the sawing in the background is my boyfriend doing something. And I'm just filling it up with the seed compost, the same compost as before. I think it says Good Winds multi compost. That's one that the garden centre had recommended to me. Like multi-purpose compost. What was I saying? I cut myself off and now I don't remember. Oh yeah, this is a tower planter, and I usually plant herbs into this. I only got it last year, or was it the year before? I think I got it the end of the year before. But it's ideal for planting herbs because you can move it inside or outside. I usually keep it in my greenhouse, so it's pretty good. Some of these herbs weren't meant to be planted at this point because it's practically outside, but I just figured if they didn't come up I could reseed them because they're herbs and you get like a million other seeds. So I add a layer of the
chamomile not doing the top. Chamomile's for the top.
First I decide where I'm putting the seeds.
Coriander. Chives. Let's do this next one. Chives. And dill. Some more coriander. And then basil and sage. And then chamomile, was that right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I add a layer of the seedling compost as well out of my other bag. That's the, is it John Innes or however you say it? Seedling compost. I don't know 100%, but I add a layer of that on top of the other compost, and then I add the herbs seeds. I do it like rotating, so one type, and then one the other type, and then one that type again, and then one the other type. And this is the compost area that I cleared up. Initially, I had planned to do it all myself, and then I realized, as you'll see, that when I'm trying to pick things up and scoop up the compost, I can't. So then I do pull in for backup. That this is where our kind of general compost pile is, and it's a complete disaster. So the tree that you saw before was my Christmas tree, which was in a pot and I thought would stay alive, and it's definitely dead, but I keep holding on to maybe it having some life left, but I'm pretty sure it's dead. And then this pile is kind of made up of grass clippings and tree bits and just general stuff. Our actual compost, where we put like the food waste, is in a bucket next to the greenhouse, but that all changes up and this becomes our compost area once we're finished here. So I'm just getting rid of the rubbish first of all, and just general stuff in the way. So this is the next day, if you were wondering, which is why I have a different top on. But I put the same leggings on because I figured they were going to get dirty. For a long time, I sat here contemplating how I was going to do this. Was I going to put all the compost into buckets and move it? Was I going to keep it all over here? How was I going to get it into the buckets? There was a lot of contemplation. And I'd thought about it before I came out here, and then when I came out here it felt way more complicated than it was in my head. So I figured I was just going to start trying to put it in pots. And then I looked and I was like, no, I have way too much to fit this in pots. The underneath layer was more compost, and then the top was just old bits of grass and stuff that hadn't decomposed. You can hear a plane going by, the birds. Nice spring day. Okay, I've decided to switch up tactics. Since doing the compost pile was too hard on my back right now, I'm going to start weeding some of the pots. So I've old pumpkin plants in and weeds. Weeds in these. So usually every year I would empty out the pots and then refill them. But this year I've decided not to do that, and they have decreased in volume, so I will top them up. But I'm not going to completely refill them. I'm just going to take out the weeds that were in them. There were some weeds, but there wasn't like a crazy amount, so I didn't think it would be a problem. And meanwhile, my boyfriend was very kindly sorting the compost pile for me and moving it and sorting through it. He's usually in charge of the compost anyway, but I just wanted to fix it because it would just become a huge mess since last summer. But there was just no way I could have done that because I just couldn't even use the spade more than twice without just so much pain. Maybe if I'd have taken some painkillers I could have done it. So meanwhile, I'm taking the weeds out of these, taking out the old pumpkin plants that I'd just left in there over winter to decompose, and just pulling that all up. So this is where I usually put the pumpkins, and usually I put a pumpkin in each pot, but this year I probably won't do that. I think I'm going to move the locations around and change up the plants I'm putting in each one. My hose wasn't working the first time. And then just jacking off the tires and cleaning up the general area. I really wanted to get to clearing off the path and doing the edging in this area as well. And there was a lot that I wanted to get to, but I didn't get to it on this day. I still haven't gotten to it, and that's okay. So we don't always get to everything immediately. But maybe I'll get to that soon. because I just think it would look so much neater with that done. And these are the plants from the other area, other plant pots even, and weeds. Once they're all weeded, I place them back. And I had the pumpkins growing up the mesh fence on this bed last year. So there's bits of pumpkins plant still left in it. I will probably do something similar again this year. But maybe with beans or peas. I'm a bit obsessed with beans or peas this year. But I love pumpkins too. So we'll see. But those pots weren't really big enough for the pumpkins. That's what I found last year. So this is it all cleaned up. And here's the compost area, which looked so much better. And I'm so grateful for the help that I had there. And my tree that's still dead, but I want to keep it. This is what the compost area looked like before. If you remember, it was just a disaster. So I was really grateful for him tidying that up, and we put the bricks there, and underneath is gravel, so I tried to clean that up, but that didn't really work. So this is the wood that was in the compost area, so I just got that put away, and because we can reuse that or burn it or something, so I get that put away into the shed. We love doing a s'mores night in the autumn, especially near Halloween time. My boyfriend's birthday is in September, so we do a lot of stuff around that time. So wood always comes in handy. Again, the bending down was still an issue for me. This is a different day. And yeah, the bending down was still a problem. So it took me a while to get this wood back in the shed, but it wasn't too bad. And we have the tools placed against the shed now, next to the compost pile. Before they were always just scattered around and stuff. So now they're against the shed, which is really nice too, next to the compost. And the buckets, you'll see in a minute, are all organised. So a much better system now, I must say. So I do come over and I think, how can I clean up this area a bit where the compost pile used to be? And I, for some reason, thought it was concrete underneath. So I get the hose out and I'm like, oh, maybe I can just jet it down. But it turns out it's not a concrete base, it is just gravel, which you'll see. So I guess I could maybe clean up the gravel. I don't know how well that would work. I kind of looked at that and thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. But I would like to clean up that area, so if you have a suggestion, See, it looks like it needs edging and then cleaning up, but I don't know where the edge is. I don't know how much gravel there is underneath. I don't know if that's possible to clean up. There. So basically, no matter how much I spray it with water, it will look like a muddy puddle, is what I noticed. So I leave that and cool that. Good. So one of the last things we get to is planting these potatoes. I had, once the compost pile was sorted, there was a bunch of dirt that we needed to use. A bunch of compost basically, so we put that in the base of this plant pot. And then I had a packet of potatoes that went a little bit off, so I thought they had like a few sprouts growing, so I thought, you know what, I'll get those planted in the dirt in this pot that we had. 4 is probably too many potatoes for this pot, but I didn't know if they were going to grow because they're just stored potatoes, so I figured I'd put a few in. To top the rest of the pot up, I just use the same compost as before and just top it with that. I do also have a pot of dirt that I had left over from plants before, so I just grab a bunch of dirt out of that pot as well and pop that on the top of this plant pot. I do mix it through a bit too. Some parts were big clumps, so I just break those out in my hands. I did initially think I was done here, and then I was like, you know what, I think I planted those potatoes too deep down when I looked at the plant pot. So I decided to dig them out and pull them up a little higher. And then after that I just water that and we're all done with the potatoes. I don't really grow potatoes because they take quite a lot of ground space. And our ground is really solid from the clay. But it'll be a fun experiment in this pot. So that's everything done. And this is me putting the new compost pot to use. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And I'll see you next time. Bye!